Hey there, my friends. I want to talk to you today about something that's actually becoming more and more important. And really, I mean, not just today it's becoming more and more important, it's actually really important. However, today it's becoming more prevalent that people aren't doing it. And what I'm talking about is headline reading. There's a difference between understanding a story, understanding the back end to it, and actually just reading a headline, right? And I'll give you a perfect example is recently, depending on when you're watching this, we're approaching mid-December 2019. Celadon Trucking just went out of business. They just filed for Chapter 11. And, a lot of people in the industry are, oh my God, what's happening? This is a major carrier, without understanding the back end and how many legal battles they're going through and the legal fight that they're fighting and the amount of money they spent on it. There's always a back end of things that you might not be aware of. And I want to relate this back to not headline reading in sales. Because I don't want this blog post to be all about kind of the issues in the trucking world. Listen, every industry goes through challenges. We're going through one. What's compounding these challenges is the fact that 2018 was such a good year, right? 2018 was really, the numbers were where they should have been. I mean, it wasn't anything exceptional with numbers because that's where they really should have been when you look at inflation and everything else going up in the market and kind of trucking rates staying at the bottom. But we went from such a good year to a not so good year. But what if we would have went from 2017 to 16? Now, not saying there wouldn't have been a dip, there would have been a dip, but it wouldn't have been so prevalent, right? So again, that's kind of headline reading. 2019 is a complete apocalypse and 2018 was awesome. But what about 2017? What about 2016? Where is the variation between those two? And I want to talk to you about this when it comes to sales, right? If you're going to me, if you follow me at all, you'll know that a big part of what I do or what I say is educating your customers, right? And educating our customers is essential. But the bigger part of that is when we educate our customers, we have to have that specific education down pat. Meaning we can't headline read. We have to understand the complete story to the best of the ability from the article we're reading, right? So as of it stands today, I've read 5 different articles on the Celadon bankruptcy. Each one had a different piece of information. A lot of them had the similar information, but each one had a different critical piece of information. And that was critical to me getting a more full picture of what's going on in that market and what's happening, right? So with anything you do when you're in sales, I urge you, get that full picture. Do the extra couple of minutes. Read 2 or 3 articles. Send your customers 2 or 3 articles. Like if you've ever heard of my 6 ways to connect theory, it's your connection through 6 different pretty unique ways. The obvious is phone and email, but I have a couple other pretty unique ways that I connect with prospects and customers. But to do this, it goes back to really understanding what you're trying to get across. Understanding the full spectrum of the story, or understanding the full spectrum of that article that can help. Instead of just reading a headline, taking 2-3 seconds to, try and put something together and not put it together in a true professional form, I guess. So let's go back to your sales for this, right? So you're sitting today or in the next couple of weeks or whenever you're watching this, and you're having a conversation with a prospect. Listen, the amount of bankruptcies that are happening, people outside transportation, I have friends of mine that know I'm in transportation and come across these articles on like CTV News and CNBC and all, and they send me the links just knowing I'm in transportation. So most people in the industry, if they're involved in logistics and transportation in any way, understand the bankruptcies that are happening. Let's be transparent. Let's call a spade, right? So they might have read articles. If you don't actually read the articles and invest the time daily to educate yourself to those articles, you can be setting yourself up to kind of look like a fraud. And I hate to put it that way, but think about it like this. You go to a customer and you say to Mr. Customer, you say, hey, I read that article on XYZ company going out of business. Isn't that a shame? Yeah, it is. What do you think about it? Well, it happened to be, it's the industry. It's kind of what's happening in the market. And the customer's going, no, that makes no sense. The CEO decided he made his millions and the owner decided he made his millions and he wanted out. That's the article I read. and you're kind of sitting there going, you're trying to have that conversation, but you don't really know. I put it a lot back to when I first started selling. Some of the suggestions that I had from some people that I first started selling with was, oh, just talk sports. I said, well, I don't know very much about sports. Well, just ask them if they like this football team, and whatever they say, just agree to it. To me, I didn't want to sound like an idiot, so I said, no, I'm not doing that. Like, if I don't know sports, or if I don't know of the topic, if I don't know of the conversation we're going to have, I'm going to tell you straight up, I don't have enough information on that, or I'm not very versed in it. Please share with me how you see it, and then, maybe we can comment on some offshoot of it, or an offshoot here or there. That's the way you approach that conversation. But, I mean, if you don't understand something and you don't know about that situation in depth, okay, I'm not talking, every now and then. I'm talking in depth. If you don't understand that conversation, then you really need to make sure you go back, learn, figure it out, and then have an educated position on it. Anytime you have an educated position on anything, you stand out because you know your stuff. You understand what's happening. You understand how it's happening. You understand why it's happening to the context of the article, right? Like let's be realistic. We have people reporting information. One person reports a little, one person reports another. There was a situation in this summer which was a nuclear verdict. I read 7 or 8 different articles before I kind of pieced together the 3 companies involved in the nuclear verdict. And I kind of stumbled across it. And that's when I really stumbled across this idea of expanding that education to different levels. So imagine this. You're having a conversation with a customer and they said, hey, did you hear about that? And you said, yeah, this company reported this, but you know what, this company reported this and that company reported that. You got 3 stories that are kind of cross and they intersect at some point, all 3 of them, but they're kind of crossing hairs. Think of how much better that bulk of information is going to be to your customer. Think about the internal communication that's going on in your customer's head when they say, wow, this guy's read like 4 or 5 articles on it. He really understands it. He really knows his market. Right? It's not just a one-time thing. You can go to any different transportation and logistics publication, and they all have similar stories. They just come at it from different ends usually. FreightWaves posted both ends. They posted the bankruptcy of Celadon, and then they posted another one saying Celadon left all these drivers out on the street, and other companies were coming to rescue them. That's a dovetail to that initial Celadon story where you can have that conversation about driver retention. Right? Think of how these drivers are going to be, how this company can retain these drivers if they're a great company because of what they just did. Right? So there's always little pockets of additional information that you can gather to really help your clients along. So do yourself a favor. And just of today's post is really about, leading into the end of 2019, we're scheduled as it is right now for a pretty bumpy, at least Q1, Q2 in 2020. And I want to make sure y'all are prepared. I want to make sure every one of you watching this really understands that it's really that dedication of education that's going to separate you from the crowd. Because if you can have intelligent conversations with somebody and you know your stuff, I mean, hands down, you know what you're talking about and you're tight, your information's tight, you're going to get ahead. You're going to be that one that, catapults himself above everybody else. And I'll tell you, I'll say it again. The reality is, if you can take 2020 and catapult yourself, just completely transform your business, you will be so far ahead of so many because too many people are focusing on, oh my God, what a horrible situation. I can't believe this is happening. What am I going to do? I got to feed my family. You know what? Do you know how many people get rich in recessions? Do you know how many people secure business for a lifetime in recessions? The numbers are staggering. Be that one. Focus on the end game. Stephen Covey always said, start with the end in mind. Where do you want to be? Set out every day and do it. And reserve every day to educate yourself, my friends. I hope, this really wasn't a training video per se, and I typically, put out weekly training videos. This was more of a FYI, let's think differently. Let's start really educating ourselves, and let's become the experts and pros and be part of that top 2% that we deserve to be because we put so much time, effort, and energy into our career. Let's take that and move that to the next level. It's super important. I hope this video served you. I hope it helped you think of different things that you want to talk about, and start looking at those those articles, that kind of industry news, that today news, but get a couple of different pieces, because some of it won't fit. And when you walk into a room as the most educated person, and not even the most, I should rephrase that, not even the most educated person, but educated enough where you can have an intellectual conversation about almost anything that's going on, you've separated yourself from the crowd. You will be the best conversationalist in the room, I promise you. All because you have an idea, because you've taken the time to educate yourself in your career. Because in the end, who benefits? You, right? The idea here, if this is your career, is to be the best you could be. Why would you want to be anything else? So in order to do that, it takes discipline. It takes energy. It takes enthusiasm. It takes all of the above. And it takes a massive amount of education, compounded with a massive amount of action, compounded with a massive amount of strategy, with scheduling, it can go on and on. But education is one of the key components. It really is. Without education, you're just selling freight. You're selling numbers. If you're not educated in the market and you can't have an intellectual conversation, your typical sales is, I have trucks in your area and I have pretty aggressive pricing. That sale is null and void these days. Will you get business? Sure. But will your business do this all day long? Yeah. And the reality is, when you go that route and you go the uneducated route, you've bought yourself a high-paying job. You didn't buy yourself a career. When I was doing a lot of training for a company, there was one salesperson that really wouldn't take my advice about not selling rates. And when he was at the office, he had some fantastic months. He has a big number months. But he went away for 2 weeks and he did zero. Because nobody would hustle the way he hustled. Because he had no clients that were dedicated to him. He only had clients that were dedicated to the cheapest possible number. So he would go back and forth. And you know what? In all, out of the dozens of people that I was training, he had the worst on time and delivery rates. He had the most headaches out of everyone. Because you get what you pay for. And if you want to play in a market that's all about cheap price, you're going to get that service, right? You and I both know it. You buy cheap things, they break quicker. The odd time they don't, but on the majority of the cases, they break quicker. They're not as high quality. They're not as professional. So don't be that person. Be the resource, not the commodity. Until next time, my friends, remember, go out there, make every call an educational one. Educate yourself daily and crush your sales. Take care.